Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to talk about the official trailer that came out today at the time of me recording this of the Irregulars. If you haven't seen it already, I'll include a link to it in the description down below. But obviously, I'm not well versed in all things Sherlock Holmes canon related wise. So this is actually kind of interesting to me because basically the premise behind this seems to be Watson is taking in a group of potentially orphans and kind of training them to kind of be investigators, but instead of just handling the regular cases that maybe him and Sherlock would, they're in fact handling the more supernatural side of things, which I guess in my head I never thought there was like the more supernatural side to the Sherlock Holmes stories, because once again, I've never read them. I've never done a lot of research into them. I'm slightly aware of them. The only experience I have with Sherlock Holmes is I've seen a little bit of Sherlock. I've seen all of Elementary. That's about it. I don't think Sherlock dabbled in any of the more supernatural side, but I think that's what the Irregulars are. They're supposed to be the ones that handle like the dark side of London to a certain extent, which I think, you know, the way they've set it up in this continuity, you know, because I don't know if they have their own book, set of books, the Irregulars, or whether they're just part of the Sherlock Holmes, like, oh, Sherlock's books, and then like somewhere in his books are the Irregulars. I think they probably get their own set of stories, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, I could be wrong, not knowledgeable on this, but it seems interesting because it's not like, oh, low dabble of supernatural. It's like, no, we're going full blown. There's a rift, creatures and magic powers and people getting powers. We need to close the rift or it's the end of everything, which I think is so interesting because what I was talking about, about to bring up earlier, what I thought was fascinating is that Sherlock, like there's this whole thing about, obviously Sherlock exists in this continuity, but I guess it's like, something happened to him and there's a line that says Sherlock Holmes doesn't exist anymore. So I took that at first as being like a literal thing, like he doesn't exist anymore, maybe even implying like he had like something had literally wiped him from existence, but it's like people still know his name. So I'm like, oh, maybe he just disappeared. But now now sitting here thinking about it, I'm thinking it's probably more likely he made himself disappear. Like there's something else that he has to deal with and basically leaving everything up to Watson, because Watson said like, me and my business partner have been keeping an eye on you. Like I guess Sherlock knew something was coming and it's like, all right, we're going to need a new generation of investigators to kind of look into this, because one of the kids has an ability to kind of see things that aren't there. So it seems like she's kind of like the main through line of like, she's going to be the one to kind of be able to, I think, see through a lot of the supernatural stuff. Now, whether all the other kids have anything special in that regard, but it just seemed like it's a ragtag team of kids, like whether it's just a simple situation of they grew up on the streets together, or whether there's a deeper connection, or whatever the case may be. It just seems like a ragtag group of investigators trying to unravel this supernatural mystery, finding this rift and closing it. Because I'm curious, because it seems like it might be a combination of maybe there's some stuff from the rift that's just running wild. Now, whether it's beings or powers from this other world possessing people, or whether things from that world coming and manifesting themselves and looking like humans, that's going to be another thing too. But we see like people gather around the circle, so it seems like maybe someone summoned the things from the rift. So maybe it's like kind of like a clandestine organization or cult up to this, or maybe there's one particular person behind it. You can see at one point in time someone's got their face sliced off and someone's putting it on. We don't know whether that's a monster, maybe it's connected to this clandestine group, have no idea, but it just seems really interesting. And I'm curious, like, once again, why Watson is doing this, because I guess it's like it's too much for him to handle, but it's also like, I guess it's like, well, I don't have the abilities that this girl's sister does to be able to see what normal people can't. But it's so interesting seeing him in the like the tutor role rather than it being Sherlock. I think that's going to be an interesting thing of like, I don't know whether this is supposed to be in this continuity Watson's first time really handling things on his own. Once again, that also, you know, that depends on the continuity, because even just taken from Elementary, which I know it's like a very different version, obviously we see Watson kind of grow into her own version of a investigator in that series. I'm sure the same thing probably applies to a certain extent to Sherlock. Once again, I haven't seen enough Sherlock. I haven't seen Sherlock in years, and the last time I watched it was like the beginning of series 3, you know, but regardless, tangents and everything aside, but it seems really interesting. Like I said, I wasn't aware that they dabbled in the more supernatural side. I don't know if Sherlock's cases at all turn supernatural, or are they all very Scooby-Doo-esque, where it's like, oh, you think it's one thing, maybe it's ghosts and all this, but it turns out to be someone orchestrating the whole thing. I'm learning that a lot more recently, because I know, like, obviously Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Like, obviously I've become a little bit more aware of those stories and realizing like, oh, they definitely have more supernatural sides of things as well. So it's just interesting learning that even Sherlock has like a more supernatural side, and just what that necessarily entails. Like I said, who these kids are, and you know what their journey investigation is, and how Watson fills the role of kind of mentor in this, and does he do a good job at it? Does he do a terrible job at it? You kind of expect, but also because it also depends on what Sherlock we're getting in his continuity. So there's a lot of questions I have, but I'm really interested to check the series out. Obviously, these are just some of the things going through my mind. I'd love to get to know your thoughts about it. Did you enjoy the trailer? Are you excited for the show? Are you someone who's well-versed in all things Sherlock? Does this seem interesting to you? What are some things you want to see from the show? What are some things you expect to see? Let me know your thoughts. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, low life to the force, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.